With level 999 Silver Wolf being just about a day away, today I'm here with the should you or should you not summon for her. We're going to be going over her kit briefly and just talking about why she is overall a strong unit, some things to consider about her, and then finally reasons why you should or should not summon. So first we actually talk about Silver Wolf herself. What does she do? What makes her strong? Silver Wolf's role is a DPS on the Elation flagship team. She's going to be the one doing majority of the damage, and also has a cool transformation mechanic where you want to build enough hidden MMR, which is what you build up to go into ultimate, so she does have a more unique ult. Same thing as either just building punchline or doing stuff to gain hidden MMR. Once you have enough points, which is 60, you're able to go into her ultimate state where she gets another turn and is able to have her enhanced basic attack go off, which is where her source of damage is going to be. You do 3 enhanced basic attacks and then you exit ultimate. That is the simple gameplay loop. She has a lot of stuff outside of that too though. Like of course she has a regular elation skill that becomes enhanced in her transformation. Outside of it, she just gets some hidden MMR points. In it, she gets a bounce attack, which actually does some very solid damage, and since it is balanced, it's very good in single target scenarios. Also, she has this thing called top loot boxes where you are able to trigger extra effects that are also based on RNG. You have a chance for the big sword to do true damage to enemies with the highest HP, an explosion that just recovers 2 skill points, and a beam that would just recover 3 punchline. You get those top loot box effects by just someone in the zone she does create when she goes into ultimate, just using a skill point. So anyone in that zone, they use the actual thing, there's a chance to proc it, there's a 100% fixed chance that goes down by 20 every time it's proc, and the enhanced elation skill actually does reset that chance. So on top of her main source of damage with the enhanced basic attack, there's all this extra stuff you can do. So your teammate also has a chance to contribute to her damage potential, since outside of them just buffing her, they are able to consume skill points to get her to have this stuff proc, especially with one of her best teammates being Sparksy, who is able to consume an amazing amount of skill points, so you can get actually all the procs in until you have to reset it because eventually it'll go down to 0. So you can have all those proc, eventually proc the elation enhanced skill, and then you can have it go again. So there is just a ton of damage output you can actually have with this character. Not only that, but it's not just related to the actual skill point consumption in her zone. In her enhanced basic attack, she also has the top loot box effects for something else, because her enhanced basic attack does state that the damage is split evenly among 100 bounces, and then after the bounces pass a certain amount of numbers, it will pause and trigger a top loot box for a total of 3 times. And that's also per enhanced basic attack, so you get to do that every single time. So best RNG, you get the sword. The worst RNG, you just get the bean. Well, I guess technically for the other two, it would just depend on what your team is, but yeah, nonetheless, outside of teammates actually being able to proc it, she's actually able to proc it in her enhanced basic attack for a lot more damage. And that's also the guaranteed part, because in her enhanced basic attack, it's 3 that are guaranteed. Outside of it, it's RNG. Inside of it, it's guaranteed. So again, a lot of damage in her enhanced basic attack and also top loot boxes, which is able to make her do a lot of damage on other characters' turns and also further enhance her damage in her enhanced basic attack. Also, another thing is she's able to gain an immense amount of crit value, because hidden MMR points she does get will also increase her crit rate by 0.4%. Once you reach 100%, instead it'll become 0.8% crit damage. So all the excess hidden MMR points you're getting, you're able to get up to 100% crit with just a solid build and then get further crit damage. So you're gonna have a character that's super loaded on that crit value, which can be looked at as a benefit or a debuff depending on your actual situations of characters. In Silver Wolf's case, a lot of her teammates are not really focused on crit, and if they are, it's not like an immense amount. Besides like Sparksy, she gives a good amount, but with crit rate, this helps you get to 100%, which is very important on her. Crit damage, there's never really a limit. There's diminishing returns, but there's never necessarily a limit, but still just getting more is going to be better. But now some things to consider about her is her teams are relatively restrictive. There may be teams that are doing like low cost clears, because that happens with any unit that does release, but you gotta remember a lot of enemies are elation chill right now. Some of them have elation mechanics that will give you more punchline, take more elation damage, I think, but mainly just the fact that you're able to generate a bunch of punchline off them, so the damage you're going to be doing overall with the team is going to be a lot higher until the show does end, which even when the show does end, she does perform fine. There's showcases you can find, but she is a character that is going to be relatively locked to the teammates you do want, being the main elation characters like Yagwang, Sparksy, and there isn't a 4th slot just yet. Usually for sustain this, you can throw in someone like Asta, but the moment we get another elation character for that team, then you would really boot out any other option. That new character would be better than any sustain, any other better option that does exist even at higher investment. So that's another thing to consider, is her team actually isn't complete yet. There are more 2 set in stone teammates being Yagwang and Sparksy, as I did mention, but the 4th slot is not yet there, so there is still room for an even further cap. So that is also something to consider when you are pulling her, even though she might be performing strong right now. One, if you're missing teammates, it's going to be a big drop off, especially if you are missing Yagwang specifically. That's the biggest one right now, so do keep that in mind, but also for the fact that she is performing a lot better and that's when her team isn't even complete yet. So when her team does get complete, she's going to actually probably skyrocket. But yeah, it is something I do want to mention since team building is a big part of this game and a lot of people are not fans of when characters are morally hyper specific. There are, again, ways you can get around it right now, but in the future when stuff does get harder and there's a lot less elation chill, you're gonna more and more want her actual teammates, and if you just have one or the other, it probably will be fine, but that's gonna be super build dependent, but it can also fall off fast. The nature of the game will not let us kind of predict that. We just kind of have to wait and see, but it's safe to assume with these teams that you're going to want to get all parts of the flagship, since the only thing we can actually count for history would be Modern Remembrance, as that was the full flagship, and missing one teammate there is pretty big, and I'm going to assume it's going to be like this. Right now, you can kind of sub out Sparksy and still have really good results. Yaguang's like the one that's like a big drop off, but in the future, I'm going to expect that it's going to be the same, where you're going to really want all of them. And then the last part of the team not even being complete, because that is something that a lot of people also want to know. This is not going to be the extent of the team. It's going to get even stronger once that last slot is finally filled. Finally, reasons why you should summon. If you're someone that owns Yaguang and Sparksy, it's highly advised you do get Silver Wolf because you just have the team kind of just there. Like, there really isn't a drawback to pulling her. You're going to have the full team that's going to clear you a bunch of endgame, way more comfortable than a lot of other teams, excluding like hyper invested in teams you might already own. But if you already have the full team practically ready, maybe you went into hyper carry Sparksy playstyle since that's what you did before this, then you just have it ready. You just pull Silver Wolf, you put the team together, you're good to go. So there's not really a reason to not. If you're missing one or both, in the case if you are willing to pull the team, then that would be another reason, because again, this team is really strong. So if you are willing to actually pick up Yaguang, pick up Sparksy on the reruns, because they probably will rerun in like 4.3, max 4.4 with this game. So it's safe to assume the reruns are quick. So if you're able to pick them up on the rerun and you're sure of it, then that's also a good idea, because that team is very powerful. So mainly, if you have the team already or you're willing to very much get it, and then of course if you're in need of a DPS in that case, because if you're missing the actual characters and you're not in much need of a DPS, then in that case you're better off just maybe even investing into existing characters. Like if you have a break team and you're missing some really crazy dupes and some of them have really good investment, the Dahlia and Firefly are both coming up, so you can invest in them instead, so on and so forth. That's going to be very account specific, so I can't get into the full details. But if you're missing both and you already have existing teams where you're not really in much need of a new DPS since you're already clearing fine, in that case, then you can kind of ignore that, but that's more of the should you skip part, which we'll get into in a second. Yeah, again, if you have the characters, so Yaguang, Sparksy ready, and then last slot could really just go to your sustain. If you have a build you can just slap on Asta, that works fine, then it's just a good pickup. Or you're in need of a DPS and you're willing to pick up the team, because you're going to very much want that, especially later on when the teammates become a lot more specific and you need that strength to be where it's at. And then reasons why you shouldn't summon is practically the opposite as it usually is. If you don't have the units or you're just not willing to get them, then I don't really recommend picking them up, because that's kind of like, should I pick up Castrus but I don't want to get Evernight, I don't want to get Hyacinth. It's kind of like that, because that's just how the flagship works. If you don't really want to pull Yaguang or Sparksy, I very much advise pulling Silver Wolf, because while she is able to clear without them, it's going to be different later and it's going to be a lot more difficult later. So I don't really recommend pulling her in that case if you are interested in mainly skipping her teammates because you don't want them, as it's not going to work out for you. And also, if you just happen to have a full account of DPSs, as I was talking about previously, and by that I don't mean like an actual just DPSs, I mean you have the DPSs, you have their teams, they're invested in to fully clear your end games, you're getting full star in end games pretty comfortably still. In that case, then there's not going to be a reason to add to your roster, and you would be feeling free to skip in that case, since it's not going to do much for you besides just having an extra team, where instead you can put those pulls into more investment on your existing teams. Like if you have Finon, if you don't have his E2, if you have Sarita for him, you don't have her E1, so on and so forth. There's a lot of investment options you can do, especially nowadays with more 3.x level characters, as a lot of vertical investment is quite insane. Because again, Starl is a game where vertical investment is very much awarded as long as you're doing it properly. So if you're missing like those dupes I talked about, or just a few more examples like Cyrene E2, that's a game-changing dupe, especially on her best teams. On really strong teams, you have stuff like Evernight E1, especially her E2, Castrus E2, Hyacinth E1, so on and so forth. There's just so many dupes that you can get. So it's a lot better to really aim for that, especially on your existing teams if you already have these set in stone teams. Because why pull for a whole other team that you're not going to invest too much in when you can rather put that same amount of pulls into into an existing team that's really strong, especially since those higher invested in teams of 3.x really show no signs of slowing down. Like E2 fine on teams are probably going to go for a while longer. Remember, it's probably going to be the best team in the game, especially high invested for a while longer, so on and so forth. So if you're in the case where you have those existing teams and you might as well not pull the other elation teammates, or you just don't want to, in that case, just invest into existing teams instead, as that's going to be better. And that is a full should you or should you not summon for Silver Wolf SP. I do hope you found this video helpful. If you did, dropping a like would be greatly appreciated. If you're new to the channel or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon for future videos like this, along with all other types of style content. And I'll see you later. Peace out.